Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Cardiac Radio at 11 p.m. Yes, we are here nourishing our souls together, and we are in another chapter of the book Evolution into Worlds by the Spirit André Luiz through two mediums, Valdo Vieira and Chico Xavier. This book was psychographed in 1958 and it was published by the Brazilian Spiritist Federation 60 years ago. This book was psychographed in two different cities by two different mediums in 6 months, and it came to life flawlessly. A book that needs to be studied time and again. And this is the first time that we're bringing it to you, the complete version, in our study at Cardiac Radio. This book was first translated by our group in 2010, together the Spiritist out of Virginia and friends at the Spiritist out of Baltimore. We led this course, which was webcast back then at the Spiritist out of Baltimore in 2010 and 2011, and in 2012 at the Spiritist Society of Virginia. This book comes to us so we can understand about ourselves. Emmanuel and André Luiz prefaced the book to let us know about the immortality in us. There are people disputing positions in the world, disputing works, etc. And André Luiz says, we don't need to compete or anything because what is ours is already connected to us. Yes, we needed to learn how to collaborate instead, right? Exactly. And he tells us in an invitation, this book, says André Luiz, is not for those who just want to know for knowing. No, he says this book, in his own words, is for those who are tortured in their minds, tortured in their hearts, and need consolation. So he invites us, let us study our multi-millenary pilgrimage, igniting the fire of our hope in our ascent to God. Okay, that's the invitation of our dear André Luiz to us. And today, chapter 4 of part 2 of this book, we're going to study more about ourselves, discarnated, and how we appear, our form in the spiritual realm. Pause for a second. Remember, Emmanuel telling us that André Luiz is inviting us to feel as immortal spirits. So, remember that this life is passing, temporary. The everlasting one is the spiritual life. So when we're studying today about how we appear, our form as discarnate spirits, we're talking about the spiritual body. That's why André Luiz is focusing on that aspect. We need to understand more about our physical body, but mostly about our spiritual body, because that spiritual body is with us for immortality. It changes, it refines itself according to our evolution, as Kardec explains to us in the book Genesis. Our dear friend Marco Magalhães recapitulated that feature in the book Genesis yesterday. Our spiritual body is composed of molecules that we attract according to our evolution, the universal cosmic fluid that surrounds our planet. And in its properties of materialization and etherealization, we create a certain density. Right? He explained that. So how do we show up? How do we appear What are the features in our spiritual body when we're discarnated? Do you know? You want to know? So join. Welcome, friends. Welcome, welcome, dear souls. Now you're here. Let us grow. Let us love. Let us serve. Let us help everyone, right? Ready? So let us go to our slides so we can know more about it. Andrea Luiz begins today by telling us about the morphological features of the discarnate entities, us, when we're discarnated. He talks about our appearance. Question that he raised, okay? What guidelines do the discarnate entities follow to morphologically present themselves? What is morphologically means? What does it mean? Morpho means form. So he's talking about our form, our shape, our appearance. And the answer begins. The morphological lines of the discarnate entities, meaning the shape, the appearance, the form, within the social group that they integrate are normally those that they brought from the world. Observe two aspects here in this answer. Huh? As André Luiz is showing to us, let's observe two elements here. He talks about our form, okay? He says our form, and he makes a connection, the social group that we're connected to, because it's talking about evolutionary pattern. According to our evolution, our frequency, which is a pattern that attunes with other minds, we are going to show up or appear according usually to the last reincarnation. Okay? Wait. Next. He says, but they will evolve always, trying to present themselves better once their social group is founded in the sphere of elevated feelings. So here we have it, right? They evolve, trying to present themselves better as we evolve going to higher spheres. This is a concept that is very important for us on earth at the level that we are. Beauty may be related to vanity, but not in reality. Leon Denis, in the book Spiritism in the Arts, shows to us that beauty is a true expression of God's goodness, not goodness for kindness in itself, but it's an expression of God, harmony. So not necessarily what we find beautiful is the actual beautiful, but in the higher spheres, it's similar to harmony. Beauty is an externalization of the inner harmony. Let us recall that André Luiz, in chapter 2, talked about the mental body dictating the form of the spiritual body, right? Mental body, spiritual body, right? What does he mean by better? What does he mean by better, Sunshine? Thank you for asking. Better in the sense of more harmonious. Mhm. Think about crazy appearances that happen out there. Nowadays, there are people there are cases of mental pathology in which people they do plastic surgeries, Botox, and they do even tattoos to look like animals. If you Google it, you're gonna be shocked because those are serious cases of mental disorder. People that try to look like animals, tigers, snakes, and those things, André Luiz says to us, they begin in the mental body. And then in the spiritual body, they are reflected. When we're incarnated, it may reflect in the physical. But here we're talking about as we evolve, we harmonize ourselves, we improve our appearance to be more harmonized. Does that answer to you, my friend Sunshine? All right. The individual form follows the dominating mental reflex, also in regards to gender, because people may be asking, do we look like men or women? Since the spirit doesn't have any gender, right? Well, it depends on how people feel. Do they feel like men or women? That's their inner life, says André Luiz. The person will then keep its distinctive psychosomatic characteristics of a man or of a woman according to their inner life. In our essence as spirits, as we learn law of reproduction in the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec, we get to know that in our essence, we don't have that distinction as spirits, men or women. But since we're developing, or better said, like André Luiz uses the word expansion, as we expand our feminine and masculine abilities of the mind, we may at times feel more of the masculine, feeling more like man, or the feminine more like a woman, and then the spiritual body will take its form, using André Luiz words, according to how people feel. Mental body means thoughts and feelings, okay? Livre Moraes. Some spirits we cannot see a gender because of their evolution. I don't understand, Livia, what you mean. Because on Earth, at our level, we still see clearly the spirits, men or women. We are not at a level yet when there is no gender at all. And you see André Luiz explaining it to us quite clearly here. He says, the individual form follows the dominating mental reflex. Discarnation frees all spirits from their male or female features of the physical body, especially those who reincarnated in inversion to either fulfill required trial or a specific task. And then people are like, oh, Mamma Mia, what's happening here? What does he mean? He's talking about gender inversion. This is a concept that is already understood in psychiatry. Okay, so spiritism is not creating anything new. And what is it? It's the cases that we've seen. When people feel like they feel like a woman, but they are incarnated in the body of a man. They feel like a man, but they're incarnated in the body of a woman. That's what we call gender inversion. Okay? Dr. Ian Stevenson has several cases of what we call gender dysphoria. Different terms in psychiatry for the same thing. It's a true case. Okay? So remember when we studied about sex and the spiritual body? You remember that. One of our homework was to understand why I reincarnated in the body of a man or in the body of a woman, because there is a reason. That's one of our duties in life when we're incarnated, is to understand the first thing. Why am I in the body of a man or of a woman? It matters. We cannot push it aside and say, oh, well, it's by chance. No, it's not. And as he says here, sometimes, even though we feel like a woman, we may incarnate in the body of a man to go through a trial, as he's saying here. A trial or a specific task. Can I give an example? Mhm. The expiation trial, as Andrea Luiz says. Dr. Ian Stevenson talks about the case of a girl in India that recollected her previous life. They investigated what she claimed, that in a previous life she was a lawyer, a male lawyer, and she abused women. He abused women, that lawyer. So in this life, she says, I reincarnated in the body of a woman to learn to respect women. She understood it, got married, had her children, and learned about the sacredness of being a woman, respecting women. And the reverse happens. Women who abuse men, who exploit men, sometimes by the use of their sexuality, by their seduction, or other means, they reincarnate in the body of men. They may feel uncomfortable, but they need to understand the respect to the other sex, gender. Now, Andre Luiz also talks about when we feel differently but come in the body of the opposite of how we feel, as means for fulfilling a specific task or mission. That's the case of Chico Xavier, whom we know felt he was not in any way, we're not talking about sexual orientation. We're just talking about that Chico Xavier felt more feminine and he was incarnated in a body of a man. Why? Clearly, huh? Because culturally speaking, he wouldn't be able to fulfill what he fulfilled if he were in the body of a woman. Why? Because women can't? No, but because, of course, the Brazilian society back then, getting better, but still chauvinistic, does not give room for people to do what they need to do in that regard if you were in the body of a woman. How do I know? Look at the case of Yvonne Pereira. According to Chico Xavier, she was one of the most powerful, faithful mediums that we had. And she had a hard time finding her ways in the very chauvinistic society in Brazil. Yes, so being a man, same for Christ, Jesus Christ, right? Why did he come in the body of a man? Because if he did in the body of women, he wouldn't be able to, he wouldn't had been able to do his work. That's clear. If we understand the context, it's clear. So, but in Jesus' case, there is no gender inversion. No, because in his purity, there is no feeling more feminine or masculine. But in Chico Xavier's case, there is. Okay? I'm giving you a tip. Okay? Exactly. Livia Moraes is saying we cannot find out if they are boy or girl, I mean discarnated spirits. I'm not so sure, Livia. I think in my experience as medium, in mediumistic meetings, mediumistic exchanges, I've never had difficulty identifying the gender, like man or woman. Okay? But let's think about it, okay? Let's keep those comments up for our study session. Now, let's go back and see what else André Luiz reveals to us. He has, due to karmic responsibility and personal identification, appearance will respect the individual's record of their last existence on earth. Due to karmic responsibility and personal identification, appearance will respect the individual's record of their last existence on earth. This status will remain until the next stage of evolution takes place, either in reincarnation or in elevated levels of service and sublimation. So we're talking here about a rule of thumb in regards to appearance, form in the spiritual realm. We will appear according to how we were usually in the last existence, reincarnation, until the next experience. That's how it is. Simple. There's no need to complicate. Now, something quite interesting. He says, when the disembodied soul is transferred to the spiritual home after leaving advanced old age, this soul will take some time to get rid of the signs of old age if the soul wants to look young again, says André Luiz. Okay? The same happens to the soul who had departed from the earth in the first youth. The soul will have to wait certain time to obtain traces of maturity if desired. So here we have something that is quite peculiar. So, am I gonna look younger or older? That's interesting. Immediately after, we will remain with the traces because that's how we're feeling. It depends on how we're feeling, right? Remember the book Paul and Stephen in the last chapter? He discarnates and the man describes how he feels soon after he is detached from the physical body. At first, he's a little weak, and then he gains consciousness and he is kind of, we say, awake, right, in the spiritual realm. And then we see he doesn't feel beheaded, right? He understood what happened. He feels entire, whole. That's a sign that Paul was already quite evolved. Then, in 30 years of true work, sacrifices, etc., he ascended to the point that he met those who were working side by side with Jesus, Abigail and Stephen, and then Jesus himself. He doesn't feel beheaded. He feels complete. But majority of the cases on earth, as André Luiz says, and we quote from Kardec in the book Heaven and Hell, the cases in the second part, according to the level of the spirit, we're going to remain. If we were old for a while, and then I've seen spirits of people who died in their 80s, 90 years old, 90 years old, and they look younger now. Why? They rejuvenated because they no longer feel old and connected to those last aging years. They are ready, and they can pick the time in their lives in which they felt more rejuvenated because that's how they feel. And when we were children, it takes a while. So you read in other books by André Luiz the same story of children in the spiritual realm. And why? Because they still feel like children until the next steps. when another feeling, another idea will dictate the form. Okay? Beautiful, isn't it? So, pause for a second. Since we're talking about all of it, right now, if you discarnate today, how do you think you're going to look like? That's homework for us. As Joana de Angelis says in the book Happy Life, we need to think about death every day. Not in a morbid way, but as a fact of life. How do you think you're going to look like? Oh, Vanice, of course I'm going to look like the way I am now. It depends. How do you really feel about yourself? Hmm? How do you feel? Do you believe in aging? Do you? And I'm asking you this because our beliefs dictate in our mental body the form of our spiritual body. Did you know that as incarnated, you can also change the way you feel, the way you think about yourself to express it in the physical? This is an effort that André Luiz coined in the first chapter of the Evolution into Worlds book. Chapter 1, Part 1, The Divine Plasma. We are co-creators at a lesser plane, still learning to command the trillions of cells in our spiritual body. He calls it the physiopsychosomatic body. So we need to learn how to think in harmonious ways. When you look at yourself in the mirror, what do you want to see? Spiritually speaking, spiritual body wise. Think about it. That's an exercise. In the next 24 hours, let us look at ourselves in the mirror, okay? And try to portray ourselves in spiritual body, visualizing. What do you want to feel? What do you want to see? Hmm? Gleaming eyes, beautiful smile, harmonious features. Hmm? How do you want it? You are a co-creator. You are being called to consciously direct your thoughts and feelings in that regard. That is actually where plastic surgery begins, in the mind. Exactly. In the mind. And also for people in regards to health, because many people think of health as something that I go do a surgery and I'm healthy, or take a medication, I'm healthy. No, no, no. It begins in the mind. So before I extract a cancerous part in my body, I needed to extract it in my mind. And if I do it consciously, I'll be helping the spirits who are helping me. Rihanna is saying, I always think of the work I will continue in the spiritual world. I need to educate myself for the work to continue. Beautiful, Rihanna. Exactly. Right? The other day I was joking with our friend Carol. I said, sometimes I think if by any chance I end up once again in the lower zones, I have a plan. I'm gonna create a tent with spiritual counseling, fraternal counseling. At least I'm going to be helping and serving there, not bothering anybody. Well, this is a dream, right? For all of us. But we're talking exactly what Rihanna is saying. Portraying ourselves immortal goals. Aiming higher daily. We're not here to pay bills. We're not here to take care of our homes. We're here to learn to do these tasks with sublime ideals. noble ideals. That's what Spiritism is calling us about, right? So let's go back. Well, the more elevated, says André Luiz, the more elevated the degree of the spirit's progress, the greater will be the plastic power over the cells that compose the instrument of their manifestation. I'll read it again. The more elevated the degree of the spirit's progress, the greater will be the plastic power over the cells that compose the instrument of their manifestation. Okay? The more we are elevated, the more we are able to, when they say plastic power, they are talking about molding power. Okay? When you say plastic, it's moldable. So we can change our appearance according to our minds. The higher we evolve, the more power we gain towards that plasticizing ability. But these other 3 slides, André Luiz is going to explain to us rehabilitation opportunities that we have. He says, in the respectable societies of the spirituality, there also are those fellows who, after depurative stages, rise up to those societies due to effective intercessions, or merit. What does he mean? Okay, he's talking about something probably we never thought about before, but he says, we're talking about purification internships that we can do in the spiritual realm. Okay, so according to, for example, let's say my mother, like André Luiz, he was rescued to No Solar thanks to his mother, right? She had credit, merit. She interceded in his favor. Mhm. He prayed, but she's the one that interceded in his benefit. Or sometimes people have merit. So then we are given opportunity to do like internships in higher colonies, let's say this way, to adjust ourselves. And what does that mean regarding our physiology, our morphology, our appearance? He says, however, even though we are there, we may carry with us 1. Certain depressing marks such as mutilations and disfigurations. We may be doing an internship, a course, a treatment in the spiritual realm, but our spiritual body will present some lesions that we carry. Or he says inhibitions, okay? Inhibitions, diseases that are detected in the psychosphere that involve us. So we still present those things. In the book, let me see which book by André Luiz. It's in the realms of mediumship. André Luiz talks about a man when he was incarnated. He used to drink and he used to live with his father, but he was an adult man. And one night he drank very much, came back home, and his father was very upset. He said, "You're a drunkard. You amount to nothing. How come?" And then the son was so upset that he slapped the father in the face. The father, on his turn, cursed the son, saying, "I hope one day your hand is um, distorted. I don't remember exactly the words. The son left and he was drunk, etc. At some point, he is caught up into an accident, dies. In the afterlife, he's still found, he's found with one of the arms, the arm that he used to slap the father in the face, actually received that mental command because of his guilt and remorse from the father, disfiguring the perispirit. And the spirit says, André Luiz, the higher spirit, that it's going to take a while in the spiritual realm to help him overcome that disfiguration of his head, because it's deeply connected with his remorse related to the father. Wow, a striking case. Wow, the mental body dictating the shape. And even though the higher spirits have fancy apparatus, they cannot change how we think and feel. We need to change it, and then they can operate. They can facilitate, right? So that's what André Luiz is saying here, and he completes that thought by saying that we may also carry other distinctive, less worthy marks due to memories of mental circuits of remorse they suffered, which are concentrated in unbalance on certain areas of the spiritual body. It's precisely also what we said. So André Luiz, when he goes to No Solar, he's still presenting the disease, the disharmony in the spiritual body, and he needs treatment in his digestive system, in the areas that are correlated to the reproductive system, right? Due to his habits in that life. So, question for us, because this study is beautiful, but we need to feel it. Are we becoming healthier in this reincarnation, or we're still creating more lesions, disharmonies in our perispirit? Habits, my habits, in all ways and means, they affect the harmony of our spiritual body. So, what is your health related to your spiritual body? What is the health of your spiritual body today? If we did a checkup, today in your spiritual body, are you healthier now since you incarnated? Or do you think you're gaining more lesions, more impairments? It's up to us to give the direction. We're free to choose. Hopefully, all these studies that Spiritism gives to us is going to liberate us. It's going to change our vibration because we're going to think differently, feel differently, think differently, speak differently, take different actions, vibrate differently. And thus the spiritual body is going to be more harmonized. Unfortunately or not, there's no other way but to become less material. We are in the material world, but we cannot be of the world, but be in the world. Homework, homework for those who are conflicted. Gospel according to Spiritism chapter, be perfect. Says Mentor Joseph, let's do the homework. He says, Chapter 17. Be perfect. Item. It says here. Item 3. The good person. Okay? It says, we are not here. And I'm opening. Of course. It says, we are to live in the world. Yes, but not be of the world. And there are people who are spiritists. They know of this and they drink alcohol. I'm sorry, but it doesn't match. And they watch pornography. It doesn't match. And they cheat. Doesn't match. But Vanessa, are you being a Puritan? No, I'm not. I'm just saying that we need to adjust ourselves. Knowing all of these teachings and keeping ourselves doing what everybody does just to fit in is no different than many teenagers that enter drug addiction, sex addiction due to or laziness, due to peer pressure. But Vanessa, I'm gonna feel left out. Well, great. Left out in this crazy world, beautiful. But you'll be in what? The community of good spirits that love you. You're never alone. So that's our homework. Chapter 17, item 3, the good person. It talks about how we should be in this world without being of the world. You know, I even see, and I say this without judgment, but in true reflections together. Okay? We're here to spiritualize ourselves, to dematerialize, to detach. Of course, we live in the world. I can go buy, if you want, and you can, buy Michael Kors clothes. It's okay. As long as I don't forget about those who need help as well. I can go to a hair salon, to a nail salon, etc. As long as I don't forget those who are in great need as well. I can go eat at a restaurant as long as I don't take pictures and show on Facebook, because that's not charitable. If you are in a beautiful place, traveling, and showing the beauty to people, saying, what a beautiful place, it's one thing. But to show that you're living the high life, I tell you, we pay a price because life is so passing. Look at Paul. Saul was like this. If he had Facebook, he would have been showing that he was really at the highest standards. Like many people do. To say God loves me so much that I'm rich, powerful. There are people who think like this. God loves me so much that I'm rich and powerful and beautiful and I have a beautiful family. But soon after, when he realizes the Christ conscious way, he sees that that's a fallacy and he changes completely. And people around him don't understand him, including his family. We need to read again the book Paul and Stephen, because we're seeing many spiritists who are behaving in complete opposite way of what these teachings are telling us. And we're not saying this again in judgmental ways, but in group awareness. Simplicity. It's here in the gospel. There is a message on simplicity. It's one of the virtues. And simplicity means do not show off. Do not show off. Hmm? Do not show off. That's not beautiful. Mm-mm. Not at all. And it's just an illusion. Because whenever God says change, everything changes. And then what are you going to take picture of? And it's not even charitable. Okay? Finally, finally, Andrea Luiz brings to us. In all these cases, the entities are usually there for a limited period of rehabilitation and re-education, to soon return to the paths of purification, rescue, and redemptive incarnations. So, in between reincarnations, we may be brought to spiritual colonies, to educational steps in which we're going to rehabilitate ourselves and reshape our spiritual body for future reincarnations. So this is pretty much what André Luiz is bringing to us. He's saying, bottom line, that our mental body dictates the appearance of the spiritual body. This is it for today. We hope to see you tomorrow when we are going to give one step ahead as André Luiz leads us into another chapter regarding the appearance of discarnate entities, especially in mediumistic settings, mediumistic exchanges. You want to know more? Come back to Kardec Radio tomorrow at 11 p.m. right here together. A big hug to you, and until tomorrow, God willing.